Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise. And we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer and listener, Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe, once again. I'm delighted and excited as always to bring you another episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. We bring you different life-changing information, impactful, we hope, inspirational, we trust. And my guest this time around is Tumelo Masalila, Coach Tumelo Masalila, otherwise known as Coach Masalila. Welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Yes. Can we get the ball rolling by you introducing yourself and sharing a little bit of your background?
All right. Thank you so much. As introduced, Tumelo Masalila, born and raised in the north, in particular Francistown. I did most of my life schooling, high school, junior school, Francistown. Had to go for boarding as well. But after that, I had to move to the city for varsity, where I took off with an associate degree in business management.
Wow.
And evolved to diploma in accounting and business management as well, and currently on my master's in strategic management.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a married man with 2 kids. Yeah, lovely, wonderful kids.
Wow, wonderful. Yeah.
Yes. So this is me in a nutshell. I'm a coach,
Yes.
and my life is just to help people become the best version of themselves.
There was a famous company secretary when I was coming up as a young lawyer called E.K. Masalila. Any connection to that one? It was also from the north.
No.
Yeah.
It's a big family. So
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's a well-known name.
Yes, sir.
So, after you did your bachelor's degree, what happened?
After my bachelor's, I had to navigate like everyone, find my space into the labor market. And what could work at the time was volunteering. And I met an organization that I really would say much of what I am today came about from that organization. So volunteering was the thing for me, because I realized that at the time the industry needed people with experience, and I can only build that when I mingle, when I get along and find people who are in it and get the exposure that is needed. So yes.
So which jobs did you volunteer to do?
I was more into administration for the most, and into projects, community projects as well. I would make time to participate with SOS. I would make time to go to Bohamudubu and engage in what they are doing. But it became well structured when I met Junior Chambers International. Yes, an organization that I would say much of what I do today comes from what I learned there. Yes.
How did you bump into them?
It was at the time I was in UB. They were doing a presentation. They were doing a recruitment drive. And at the time, I happened to have seen one of the flyers, and I decided to go listen. I then met some gentleman who I was very wowed and surprised by the way he presented himself, by the professionalism, by he just modeled what I needed in what I aspired to be. That's how I met the organization. They came to recruit. So I decided, from just hearing about it, I joined immediately on the spot. And that was also early after graduating. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what was your first job?
I started first working in a training company. One of the seniors at JCI was looking for an administrator at the time. So they spoke to the secretariat, and having seen me do a couple of projects and volunteering there, they decided to give me the post on the spot. So this was Jorisma at the time. The company was involved into training, capacity building. I think it was destiny.
Yeah.
Because from then I just felt that the puzzles are falling into place rightly. Yeah. So we were more involved in bringing international speakers like the likes of John Maxwell into Botswana for the first time.
Wow.
The likes of Robin Sharma. Yes.
They did come.
They did come. They did come. My first encounter with them was then. And ever since then, I couldn't look back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I want us to go to JCI International.
Yes, sir.
What does the organization stand for? And what is it about what they do that really hooked you?
The aspect of developing young people and equipping them to now develop communities was the striking thing for me, because I was young and interested more in development. And from somebody who grew up in not close to the city, I felt I needed to do more, so I may fit in and I may be better at what I want to do. So JCI had the package. They provided what we call development opportunities. There is individual opportunities, there is business opportunities, there is community opportunities, and international opportunities. And the list was just, I could tick all the boxes, because then when I saw the package, I felt this is where I'm better placed. So with the aspect of that, I became more drawn, because I felt I will develop, and I will develop my community eventually. Yes, yeah.
You're a coach.
Yes, sir.
What does that mean, and how did it start?
I'm a coach, and coaching simply suggests that you become somebody who guides and provides direction for people or individuals or organizations or companies. Anybody who comes your way seeking light and direction, you are in a better place to sit them down with what they have and say, how best can you now move from one point to another? For me, it felt like providing light, better to people. So the way it started, I was engaged in an international training program with JCI in Zimbabwe. And I was fascinated by the way the presenters were really carrying themselves out, delivering the content, the way they were, the context of the content. And I felt this is what the world needs. And that's when I started cultivating the culture. That's where I started cultivating the desire to coach. So from seeing that and the exposure, I normally say exposure births greatness. And because I was exposed in a world that was not mine, I felt indeed this is the thing. Yeah, that's how I interacted with coaching, and that is back in 2012.
Wow.
Yeah.
You must be someone who observes presentations very closely. You're impressed at UB by the way somebody carried themselves. Once again, you're impressed.
Yeah.
What is it? What are these characteristics that you observe that impress you so much and pull you into something?
It's the inspiration that comes with the presenter. It's also the aspect of information sharing, where you communicate something that probably those who are listening to you are really much interested in getting and bettering their lives. So for me, I felt presentation really is the thing. It helps people in a way to become the best version. I mean, if you grew up in a space where probably you didn't get the best in terms of coaching, mentoring, in terms of parenting, but you then get to see somebody who can communicate such to you, it strikes a chord, because life changed from that moment, and that has been my story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any memorable sayings or utterances from that presentation that you can share?
I can recall and remember the one in Zimbabwe. There we had a man from Finland. He came to train on becoming a presenter, and the guy echoed a message on the significance of speaking, the value behind speaking and presentation. You know, it took me back to the Bible, where the Bible says the power of life and death lies in the tongue. And the way the man was not saved, he was not Christian, but the way he expounded on the concept of the power of life and death in terms of speaking, I realized that this is the what makes life. The words that we say, what comes out of our mouth makes life for many people. Yeah. So that really, really set well for me ever since then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we're here to talk about leadership.
Yes, sir.
And that is one area where somebody like John Maxwell, who you already mentioned,
yes, sir,
talks about. Can we start with a working definition of leadership? What would be your definition?
My definition that I've learned a long time ago, while I was still at high school, is that leadership is doing work through other people. Simple as that. Doing work through other people. Yes. That was the definition I got from high school. We were taught while I was still doing commerce at the time. And eventually I met John Maxwell. And John Maxwell clarifies it as influence. Now, when I bring the two together, I came to realize that indeed, influence would get people to do certain things. Now, this is to sum it up and say leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Now, do you think as Botswana we've grasped the concept of leadership?
To be honest, Botswana, we have not. Generally, I think it's a problem we have in Africa. Taking back from the context of the word leadership, we normally associate it with those in leadership roles, or rather those who are followed by a group of people, but not exactly what the term means. To say this is a skill that needs to be worked out, that needs to be harnessed, that needs to be cultivated. So as I think generally Botswana, we run the risk of not really digging deeper into finding out what the skill is all about, the significance of the skill, and how far does it play in changing people's lives. So that's why you'd see people not capacitating themselves even after assuming a leadership role. I normally give this example where you have a teacher who got employed to teach a subject, and eventually they are told, now you are a senior teacher, probably guidance. After a couple of years, now you are head of department. You would realize that the person would be changing those roles, but not changing themselves, not working themselves out to suit the responsibilities given to them. Yeah. And I normally tell people, the skills that brought you to where you are, they're not sufficient to take you to where you want to go. So Botswana, we have not yet come to terms of realizing that such comes with responsibility, but also skill. And skill being leadership. You need to work it out. The book
says you cannot pour new wine into old wine skins.
Oh, yes.
What would you say? How would you address that saying in the context of leadership in Botswana?
Yeah. You can't put new wine into
old wine skins. I think it was said by Jesus himself.
Of course. And I'm laughing because normally with leadership in Botswana, we associate it with politics. And that's where you'd find old wine skin, right? I would associate it in the sense that we have people who have already assumed the responsibilities, but who probably now are shying away from cultivating, resourcing, capacitating themselves,
Acquiring new skills.
and the saying goes, it really explains the landscape of how leadership is like in Botswana, and there's too much resistance from the old guys or from those who are in roles. There's too much we like Botswana.
The old wineskins are resisting new wine.
They are resisting new wine, which comes with change, technology, which comes with the trends, which comes with what leadership is now. And there's too much resistance. And I think we are confirming and affirming it, that indeed we can't put new wine because the resistance is at another level. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of your coaching practice, do you have a module, or what do you provide in regard to leadership?
For the journey started with the certification with John Maxwell, and we started doing John Maxwell related programs. Those were the anchors of what we were doing, sharing the knowledge, the skills and stuff. But eventually we started developing our own content, looking at the landscape, looking at how things are in our area. And so, yes, we
using that one as a general template, but adapting
it
local conditions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we started developing topics around leadership, effective leadership, topics around growth, topics around productivity that we felt are mostly needed in the market and the space that we function in. Team building, it's one of the things that we have used. From that knowledge, we have put together content that guides.
Now, can you share with us specific experiences where you taught leadership in terms of inputs and outputs, what you found and what the result was?
Yes, sir. I've made rounds in government departments, and which I would not mention, but some I could tell, going back to the resistance that you mentioned. Somebody my age cannot talk about leadership. This is how we view it in Botswana, because we want to associate it with experience, not really with skill and knowledge, right? And from the sessions I've had, I've seen a lot of that type of resistance. And some would even come to me and say, I have a master's in leadership, but when you stood to speak about leadership, I was wondering, what is the small boy going to say about leadership? And but eventually, people would give you good feedback after the presentations and stuff. So I would say, in terms of inputs, we are doing as much and reaching out as much. And eventually I'm seeing a little bit of, there's been a little bit of change from those who we have interacted with.
Is the focus mainly in government, or you do work also for the private sector?
Work also for the private sector. We all sectors, we touch base on all, even non-governmental. We even go across, because for us leadership is for everyone. It's not only for those in roles and responsibilities. And
are you able to give some clue there of what impact you've had in the private sector, without necessarily mentioning names?
I had the impact I've seen was with the ministry. I would have to say this one. I don't think they would be bothered. The Ministry of Education, during the COVID era, we were privileged to have been given that opportunity to debrief a couple of school leaders, being the HODs, the EXCO, in all this senior schools that we have around. And this was just to help them bounce back from COVID and the impacts that it has left for them. And we have seen overwhelming feedback that is very positive from the schools that we went to, and that the teachers that we also trained at during that time. There has been feedback that came through to show that indeed we have embraced what you have shared, and it has really had an impact. We were in a sinking ship, but we have now had we now have a good perspective into now moving forward with what we want to do post-COVID. Yeah.
The president gave a famous speech on the reset agenda, and he shared how there's need for a reset and how we have stagnated over the last 50 years. And he really spoke passionately about the need to shift and to change the outlook. Do you have any views on what he said, and to what extent is the reset being understood and applied? Yes.
I think one thing I've picked that he echoed more was on the mindset change, was on the aspect of capacitating, moving from a knowledge-based economy to a what's the right word?
Moving into the knowledge-based
economy.
Yes,
economy.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that stood out for me because then it echoed the message of showing that there's really serious hunger for change. Change that comes with, of course, first and foremost with knowledge. People embracing it and people knowing that we need to evolve. And the stagnation, well put and well said. Botswana, we are living in a global village, and somehow we find ourselves to be lagging behind in most things. But it has only been recent that we have managed to stand out here and there. From the past 5 years, the flag has been flying internationally. But it will require a lot of that mindset change, a lot of capacitating, a lot of institutions coming forward to say this is how best we can recommend this development in terms of knowledge transfer, and people being resourced and knowing what they are exactly supposed to be doing wherever they are functioning.
He says at page something 2 of the speech, you also need to reset ourselves and our mindset.
Of course.
We self-determined that we are going to reset, and that is to focus on citizen economic inclusion. Now, we have to look deeper and scrutinize at the key tool of governance and delivery, which is the public service, and recognize the depth of degradation therein. For therein lie the answers to implementation failures.
Oh yes.
What do you say to that and those sentiments in terms of your observations?
The depth of degradation. I think it goes without saying that if we are going to make any change, we need to first recognize where we have gone wrong. We need to first look at where the loopholes have been, because sometimes we want to drive change with various initiatives that can be brought about, but ignoring what could have been the cause and what could have caused resistance. So I'm glad that the president recognized that to say, let us then take stock, if that's for a lack of a better word. Let's do the necessary assessment and analysis of where things could have gone wrong, and then see how to now pave a way.
And he concludes by saying, we want this reset to be woven throughout the fabric of our society.
Of course.
It is our determination to eliminate the stigma of self-dislike among our people. We will stamp out the mounting culture of corruption, identify new sectors for growth, employment, and aggressively attract investors. So I'm curious about your take on this, where he says, stamping out the culture of corruption, and then the stigma of self-dislike. Where does that come from? Why do we self-dislike as Botswana?
Botswana, I think we come from majority backgrounds of people who really don't believe in themselves and believe that they are second best, second last. We come from backgrounds of single parent families. Some of us growing from extended families, where you had less attention in your upbringing, but then having to be competitive in a world where somebody should be having their self-esteem at a level that is expected to compete. So I believe that was well noted by the president to say this is where we are. Probably there's that need looking at that aspect. Yes. And yes, corruption. Corruption is something that we will have to really work hard on. And
how do you stamp it out?
I think it's a mindset change also aspect. Because right now those who are engaging in it believe that they need to fend for themselves and their families, and believe that there are loopholes. Why not take advantage? It can only be stamped out when we create systems that do not tolerate, systems that would not condone. And that's where you birth culture eventually.
Do you need to set examples by targeting the big boys, so to speak?
Would I manage that without stepping on anybody's toe or even making reference to some? How should I put it? I think where there's one thing that I like by one wise man, Stephen Covey. He wrote a book, The 8 Habits of Highly Effective People.
7 habits, and then there's the 8th.
Then there's the 8th. And one of the habits is think win-win. Think win-win. To say if life becomes a zero-sum game, then there is no point of living it. Where one feels, if I have the pie to myself, then I'm better off. So we need to cultivate a culture where we know this is a world, one world for us all to share, and leave some for others. Yes, if Mogobe, you need to create space and a legacy that paves way for others to come through, not only to exalt one person and leave the rest to suffer. So I think maybe with that we could work our way, and even the big guys in the industry could see, could have, if they could have that point, that view, then they will do much.
So how do your coaching skills come to play in terms of addressing such challenges? Let's move to growth, for instance.
Yes.
Because it's important, and the president recognizes that we need growth, we need expansion, we need to scale to get out of the current rut that we had.
In terms of growth, I would simply say that we evolve, and if we are going to do that unintentionally, we run the risk of just going back to where we think we are trying to get away from. Yes, so we need to be looking back and saying, how do we then create what can work for us as a nation going forward? And our programs are tailor-made in that context. If you're going to talk about leadership, we're going to bring out the aspects of integrity. Why is it important for a leader to not only have the skill but also have the characteristics that that allows and breathes a culture that condones that type of, and creating the right environment. So it's those simple values, principles that we incorporate that will then now help and assist in making an intentional growth that will then also see us having a society that is accommodating and allowing.
So do you have programs to assist as a coach? Can you share about that?
Of course. One of the programs that we decided to tap into the arts industry, talent, arts, athletics, and we have a program we call Passion Breakfast. We believe that this industry contributes significantly into the economy, though it's hard to tell, to peak, but in times that we find ourselves in, Botswana should navigate towards using their God-given talents to build enterprises, and also to use them and in bettering the communities that they find themselves in. You do realize that passion, talent, we normally associate them, and we say they go hand in hand.
So how does the Passion Breakfast work in practical terms?
A Passion Breakfast is a sitting where participants come together to come and learn on those nuggets of how to build your talent into an enterprise. We provide tools to say, Mogobe is a speaker, but now how do you turn that into an enterprise? If you are an athlete, how then do you make that into a long-lasting career? So the tools that we provide, they pave way to give you the step-by-step walk to coming up with that enterprise. Normally we see stars in this industry, and some of those stars, some are fallen, some we cannot talk about, but they had that thing. That
they had the talent.
They had the talent, but the question is
tapped and unmanaged.
Unmanaged. Where did things go wrong? So the Passion Breakfast brings about that. The coaching element post the training workshop. We now bring coaching one-on-one with each and every participant.
Now, is it your experience that a breakfast like that is sufficient to effect the necessary change, or there's a lot more involved?
There's a lot more. There's a lot more involved, Mogobe, because that's just a gathering of over 100 people. We would then need to drive the point home post the session, where that's where we encourage counseling and coaching for those who maybe feel that, yes, I've been inspired to now take up my talent into an enterprise. Therefore, we then walk them through the journey to doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
One problem that we have sometimes is stagnation, and sometimes if it even leads to regression. What in your view leads to stagnation, which then becomes regression?
I think the issue of not being intentional about where we want to see ourselves go to. We allow life to happen to us. One wise man once said, in this life you either live this life or you exist. And majority of us are just existing. We allow life to throw whatever it can throw, and we live every day as it comes. One has to be intentional to avoid regression and eventually becoming,
well, it's death.
Yes,
eventually.
Yes, and because every one of us has a dream, and we need to wake up to seeing it come to life. The beauty about creation is God has deposited something in each and every being. So we need to wake up knowing that we have that deposit. We need to do something about it. So regression now comes when you now just watch, become a spectator, and you don't see yourself as a contributor into anything that there is in this world. So that's what we need to start working on.
As a coach, here's your chance to shamelessly plug some of your successes and blow your own trumpet. Can we share one or two examples of, even if you don't mention names, you may choose not to?
Oh, yes.
Where you're impactful?
Of course. We normally do coaching for professionals in the industry. I could reference to a list of men and women who are shining today in the corporate circle because of our interactions, our coaching programs that we facilitate for them.
Can you just tell me what positions they are in, maybe without mentioning their names?
Oh yeah, we from managerial roles, supervisors, even those within the lower.
Tell us what happened. Take specific examples. I want.
Of course, I'll give. Can I mention companies? If that's okay.
Yes, I guess you can.
Okay.
Without embarrassing them.
No, this will be in good light. The reason why I enjoy interacting with F&B is they are one of the clients that I have who have given me that opportunity, and they have made it so much intentional that even they are fresh. They have a program that they call Smart Spark. Yes, where they induct new recruits. They take them through what professionalism, what it takes to be the cut above the rest, and those are the people I've also interacted with, and I really commended them for doing that. I mean, most employers are all about the taking. What can you give me? But less about developing. So I think FNB is doing well in that, and I've had my fair share in contributing. I have had my fair share with...
They'll give you the recruits, or they'll give us the undeveloped talent.
Yes, they would give me their recruits and take them. They ask that you take them through that program and, capacitate them, train them, and prepare them. This is before they decide who stays, because they are a group of interns. So before they could decide on you, Mogobe, they would have given you the fair chance from developing you to now you having that opportunity to show what you can do. Yeah.
And normally, how long do these sort of trainings take?
It's a long... I only get in to just do the capacity part, but the program runs throughout the year, I think, through the
they would have an intern who's there for a year.
Yes.
But you would come in for capacity building for how long?
It's a series of sessions. We would do 2-hour sessions with the interns, and then you leave them to practice whatever they've learned and eventually come back and do something like that. And
and they would pick the most successful ones and
eventually
make those stay.
That makes those days, but that's the part I'm not involved in. And but I believe that's how they end up doing it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still want to talk a little bit about growth and scaling. I see these words used sometimes interchangeably. Is there a difference? And if so, what is it?
I would say there's a difference. And maybe also tend to say there isn't much. Because what you grow, you need to measure. You need to tell how far it has matured, how far it has developed, and how far it has gone. And with growth, you want to always be on the measuring side. As you deposit, you'd want to be on the line to check if this is going somewhere. And I think it's something that as a country, we tend to be lagging behind on. This is why you'd see companies just collapse out of the blue and nobody can explain an account. You would see money thrown into something and you would ask, was there a fair analysis, a check? Just recently I was doing one of my clients, Football Union Botswana. It's a union that advocates for players, athletes. They are one of my clients as well that I would blow my horn on and shine on. I developed the board throughout the year and trained them. And I had to ask them about the sponsorship that was done for the Premier League. APSA stepped up to sponsor. And my question was, how did you measure the 1.7 million? How were you able to tell? How many stakeholders were involved to tell that indeed the league should be at 1.7 in this year 2023? Because we then complain about growth in the process. We then complain about things not going anywhere. So the aspect of growth comes in there. The scaling comes in there to do your checks and balances. Yes.
So you say if there's a difference, it's very subtle. But what is the difference?
Subtle.
It's difficult for me to grasp it.
Because for me, I would take them both and explain them and favor both. And that's maybe why I fail to...
You see, me, just as my layman analysis, that growth, yes, it's when something becomes bigger.
Yes.
But somehow scaling implies exponential. Somehow when you scale, you imagine something going up very, very fast. 100 times or 1,000 times. Just in my mind. I don't know whether that makes sense.
No, I get it. I get the view. And maybe the separation becomes difficult because the expectation of growth is when is that eventually when it matures, it shoots up. It takes off and maintains, becomes sustainable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I want us to go back to JCI.
Yes, sir.
I know that you still hold an office there, and I wanted to know whether there's any relationship with your current job, because they call you by, they're the ones who recommended you come on the show, and they call you by the name Coach.
Yes.
And it seemed as if you're still part of the family, although you're not there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
My involvement with JCI is lifetime. Yes, it's lifetime in the sense that eventually in JCI, when you have served your terms, you are awarded senatorship, something that they are yet to do, but have expressed interest towards me to say, we want you to be our lifetime member, where now we could
lifetime membership is senatorship.
Where now you are able to assist wherever possible, at every level, at every rank in the organization. So the position I would say I hold now is a lifetime trainer of JCI. Whenever they call, I'm available to provide training in all the topics that they may require. So coaching as well for the boards, the board of directors, in terms of leadership, how to serve well in your year, and the expectations that lies thereof.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that is likely to continue for as long as there's breath in your body.
Exactly, sir.
Oh, this is very exciting.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about the actual coaching business.
Yes, sir.
Apart from helping with growth and with leadership, what other areas do you coach on?
Parenting, which I'm very passionate about. And I believe it's one gap that we have in the country, where generations evolve, but there isn't much that parents, as parents, we are doing. There isn't enough, if I were to put it that way. If you look at the social ills that we have and the involvement of young people in those, you would reference or maybe track it back to issues of disgruntled parenting, where there isn't much of that in homes. Where from case to case, you would get those kids complaining about the absenteeism of their parents in the journey, in the process. The failure rate we are having today.
So how do you come in? You come into a family and do what?
I come into family gatherings, family group. Family would call me to talk to the entire family in terms of how to best relate. Rivalries start from families. We have those, and it's like they're bound to exist forever. So some would call me just to soothe things and help them relate better. Then it goes back to parenting between parents and their children, and we will then sit and take them through processes and tools that would assist them to relate well. Yes. So basically that's that. Yeah.
Parenting and what else? Schools? Couples also.
Couples. I enjoy that space very much. We have a program we call it Couples Team Up, where every year we run a conference for couples, and post that we run coaching for the couples. We are bringing in the aspect of capacity building within couples, or maybe professional development, skills development, where two people who are romantically brought together but now see life beyond that, but developing each other, bringing the best version of each other, becoming a team. Together we can do more. So
when you say that, you bring something very interesting I read about. I think some states in America do this, where you have court mandated mediation, where even if in a divorce setting, they want you, before moving forward, to have some kind of mediation to explore reconciliation before going forward. But it's more or less mandated. I think it's 1 or 2 states that have done it. You think it's a good idea, perhaps? And when I was actively practicing, I used to suggest to some couples that come to me for a divorce, I would suggest to them they should consider or explore reconciliation.
Of course.
Is it something you believe in?
I strongly believe in. I strongly believe in that, in the sense that especially when what triggers separation or divorce, it's something that can be traceable. It's something that can be looked into. That is, if both parties are willing. So reconciliation comes through to try and help them maybe at least have a last minute glance to how things have been in the past and say, could this be fixable? Could we correct if there's a room? And post that also, you'd want to say who is involved in this separation, this divorce, the children, the family, extendedly as it is. Have they been brought together to just appreciate and understand? Because after this separations and divorce, it never ends well. Mostly people now become enemies. But could we maybe envision a time where we could see even divorced parents co-parenting harmoniously with love and still sharing lovely memories for the sake of those around them? So I think that's a role reconciliation would play.
Yeah, because the former Chief Justice used to lament the high divorce rate.
Of course, yes.
And I don't know whether, are you finding that there is prospects to avoid the big D, avoid the divorce, once they've been referred to someone like you? Has that happened, or is that happening?
I've had cases of people coming to me who are at the verge of separation and totally divorcing. But I would say it has been a challenge. I can't say I have a case I could point to. It's all work in progress. Majority of them who are still trying and aspiring to build and to fix. But the issue being that most come to counseling thinking that they are trying to fix and correct. And I would like to twist things a bit there and say, I've realized counseling is something that we should have, even when we don't have problems. Just to have somebody sit with you and charge your mind and prepare your mental health, your mental state, so that challenges that you encounter in the journey of this marriage institution, you are better placed to handle them. Because if you look at what causes divorce in this country, some are little minor issues that could have been discussed, talked through, and sacrifices made for the betterment of both and those involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
As we get into the year, what does Coach Masalila have for us? For what can we expect?
Oh yes.
In the short term.
Yeah. In the short term, we want to put together the Passion Breakfast. Hopefully by July, we want to. We are looking for partners to come aboard and let us push. Let us drive the aspect of getting this industry, the arts industry, into a big contributor of the economy, and let us also shape destinies.
So when is it taking place? When is the next one?
July. We would host it in July.
And what happens? Everybody comes?
Everybody comes who's willing to come and who can pay.
And where is it?
We are planning to have it in Grand Area. Yes, at Grand Area.
You pay how much?
We are still working on the tickets.
Okay.
Yes, because with time, prices change.
Yeah.
So at this point, we have no tickets. Ticket.
But I'm sure you'll be talking to us via social media.
I will definitely be doing that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And then coaching. We have ongoing coaching for individuals, those who are professionals, those who are staying at home and wondering how do I navigate. We also run a program on Yaruna FM, on the world's famous soccer show, on Sundays. That's where we try.
Sunday at what time?
7:35. Yes.
You personally host it?
It's host. I co-host.
Yeah.
Yes.
With
Fox.
Oh, okay. And what happens there? You discuss what sort of things?
We discuss life issues. This is where we also, some of these topics that fall within what we offer come about and crop about. Family issues, corporate issues, any other that they...
Yeah, that's short term. Medium term, by that I'm talking 3 to 5 years. What do you have for us?
3 to 5 years. We are and we are putting together an academy. We are strongly worried about where this unacademically inclined kids go to. Where do they end up? who is taking care of them, who is concerned about them. You'd find that one would fail from 3 and never know what to do and where to go. You'd find one would fail from 5, or even adversity, drop out, fail and discontinue. Where do you go? We want to be the go-to place to, work, bring these people together and coach them and give them hope in how to go about with what they have and cultivate that whatever they have and build it into something that can give them a living. Yes. So that will be medium.
Then long term, I'm talking 10, 15 to 20 years.
For me, it's about legacy. I'm hoping to have this as an institution eventually and raise more coaches who could do the same and even better after what we have done.
You have a number in mind?
I wouldn't say now.
Yeah.
But yes, but a lot.
Yeah,
a lot. Yeah.
And does this mean you're going to have ongoing coaching sessions?
Definitely.
Is it more or less what Maxwell talks about?
It's more or less what Maxwell talks about. It's
Creating
in fact
leaders.
Creating leaders. It's one of his philosophies to create more leaders, building more leaders, people who can do better than what you have done.
Yeah.
So this is where we'll be going from here.
Speaking of Maxwell, I won't leave you without asking for your favorite Maxwell quote. One of my favorites is, everything rises and falls on leadership.
Oh, yes.
What is your favorite or one of your favorite?
Influence. Leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay.
If you can't influence, you can't lead. He likes saying, if you are leading and nobody's following, just know that you are taking a walk.
Yeah.
and you'd realize many of us are leading, but nobody is behind us to say, I support the vision. Yes.
And then any other sayings?
From Maxwell?
Yeah.
Any other would, growth. He has a lot about growth. What could be one? I'll remember Mogobe, but yeah.
And then apart from Maxwell, who are your other heroes and why?
Robin Sharma. Yeah, I think because I personally met this man, that's why probably I have.
He's a former lawyer like me.
Yes, definitely. Robin Sharma is a deep thinker. I enjoy reading his books. 5 a.m. Club, Leading Without a Title. That's the one I like the most.
Yes.
Yeah, because that concept also I like borrowing wisdom from it to be a leader without a title. Robin Sharma will be one of them. Miles Monroe. I've had the privilege of meeting him personally.
Wow.
Yeah.
You went to his home?
No, he was here in Botswana.
Oh, you also brought him here?
No. One gentleman brought him here, a coach as well, or a pastor, Bishop Rams. I was privileged to be the facilitator during the time he was speaking.
Wow.
Yes, I was the MC at the time. So
before he died tragically,
Yes, that was before he passed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And obviously it was before, but I'm just saying shortly before.
Shortly before, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he was here.
Yeah. What is memorable about him? What do you remember?
What I enjoy about him is his teachings on marriage, families, couples. He just has a deeper insight into what God intended about marriage and what it means, the roles that husbands, wives should play. Yeah, it's one aspect. When it comes to those areas, he's my go-to person.
I like when he says that the kingdom of God is a kingdom. It's not a democracy.
Exactly.
You should not treat it as a democracy.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a kingdom.
It's a kingdom.
There's a king.
There's a king.
Decides everything.
Definitely.
Like
you don't come as you are and do what you want.
Yeah.
You do as the rules by the king, as the king decrees.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I just want to ask you a technical question. Some people call themselves motivational speakers. Others say, no, I'm an inspirational speaker. is inspiration more important than motivation? Are these the sort of issues that keep you up at night, and what do you think about them?
They do. And I believe they're different. You see, one thing about motivation is it gets you hyped up for a moment. But inspiration carries you along. Inspiration comes with discipline from the one who's receiving. When you are inspired, the question is always, what then? What are you going to do about it? And this is where you would need somebody to handhold you, take you on the journey. And that's where the coaching aspect comes. So I then regard myself as an inspirational speaker, not more as a motivational speaker. Because then I don't hype people. I've never been good at it. I'm more about processes, systems. How then do we take from here?
I had Moshe Suloka here, and he said motivation is more like taking a bath, because after a while you attract death and dust again.
Well put. I listened to the I remember the interview.
You remember him saying that?
I remember him saying that. Yes.
You want to add on to that?
I relate definitely, because one thing about motivation is you need to follow up. And most of us are not as inspired. You would come from such a session, somebody would be listening to us and say, this was a beautiful session, I'm charged up, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do or conquer the world. But the question is, are you disciplined? Have you created the systems, the structures to carry that motivation to go forward? So I think he was spot on to say you need it from time to time. If you are one feeding from it, don't stop. Yes.
And on that subject, are you planning anything internationally beyond our borders? And if so, what activities are you involved in?
Currently, I wouldn't say there's any at the moment. We unless otherwise, we have with John Maxwell platforms where you can be invited to speak alongside in countries that he is facilitating at. Those are what I'm working on, if not. And also JCI conferences. I hope I'll be listed amongst the trainers to facilitate at that platform. Those are the opportunities that I'm looking at for now. Yeah, none from my side.
All right. Any books being written or being planned or cooked that side?
Definitely. I'm at a point I'm warming myself up into this writing space where I fully embrace the gift of
you
being
haven't
an
started
author.
writing yet?
Not yet, but in fact I have scripts. I have books I've put aside. I have books I've written 5 chapters and piled on the side.
What do you need? Inspiration?
I'm more about
to finish.
I'm more about cut edging. I'm more about bringing something out of the ordinary. I want to avoid it being one of the books in the shelves. I want it to be a book that becomes a reference point from generation to generations. Yes. So I think the perfectionism part of me is really delaying.
Well, I have a saying for that. I'm saying you should never let perfection be the enemy of progress.
Thank you.
Because that's how procrastination takes root.
Of course.
Yeah.
And
so I'm coaching a coach.
Exactly. And I would not forget that. I needed that dose. Yes. Sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now there's a chance to hit me with a question if you have one.
Okay. Mogobe Group. I've always been fascinated, observing from a distance. Seeing Mogobe with all this together, companies. How do you strike a balance in a world and environment where there are a lot of competing priorities? You are a family man. You have this as well, a team. How do you strike a balance to keep everything afloat?
Okay, I try to avoid balance. I think it was an interview of Jeff Bezos, which really resonated with me, that no, it's more important to think of harmony than balance, because balance implies equal parts of anything, and harmony is more about whether things integrate and really make sense together. Because you may a particular week decide to give 90% of your time to family,
yes,
and then only to 10% to work or to work pressures. It doesn't balance.
It doesn't balance, yeah.
But it's harmonious. It blends in.
Wow.
So I've tried to work from the point of view of work-life balance. I recognize that I can never have my finger in control of every pie, and I can never, under-delegate. So it's better to delegate and to delegate as much as possible. But check on what people are doing. So I think of myself as more of a manager of managers who checks on what they are doing than me micromanaging. So it's through that, and then having that overall faith that it will all work out in the end, and then keep focusing on assisting. There's a little bit of firefighting involved. So I trust that my job is to manage managers more than to ensure that there's a balance. So emphasis on harmony rather than on balance.
Oh, it's great. Thank you so much.
You're happy with that answer?
I'm happy with the answer.
Okay.
Managing managers.
Yes.
Yeah. Building leaders.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Here's your chance to leave that viewer straight on that camera with one final all-encompassing motivational message. As we part.
All right. There's a famous quote I like reciting, and to our viewers, I would say, life is like a parachute jump. We need to get it right the first time. And this is to suggest that you need to live your life intentionally. Don't leave anything left unattended is likely to corrupt and to rot. So you are looking at life and you want to embrace it and you want to live it to the fullest. So let us get up and do what we need to do with our borrowed time. So thank you so much.
So the last question is, where do they find you?
Yes.
And on social media and elsewhere, you must indicate all your contacts.
Of course. Our social media handle is Coach Tumelo Masalila. You can catch us on Facebook, Instagram. You can find us also on TikTok. And then also we have a WhatsApp line. We call it the hotline, where your counselings can be booked, where your coaching sessions can be booked. And that's 73164719. And that's where you can reach us, and one of our team members will be happy to assist, and you are likely to encounter and find me at the time if you call. So yes, and our website is www.introvision.co.bw. That's where you can get a list of our programs and appreciate more on what we do. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. You've been a great guest. You
Thank
them your WhatsApp number?
Oh yes, that's the one. Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.